Okay, I'm live, and my name is Scott Dikkers, and I'm from howtowritefunny.com, and tonight, or whatever time of day you're watching this, I'm going to go through the steps for how to write a funny book. I get asked this a lot because I've written a lot of funny books. A lot of them have made the New York Times bestseller list, and I've written all kinds of funny books. I've written books of jokes, books that had kind of a structure, a comedic structure, and I've written books of collections, and I've written novels. So how do you do it? Well, the most important thing is to actually put words on paper and put it out. Now that may seem like silly advice, but literally that is the most essential part, and it's the hardest part, because a lot of people have ideas for books and they might have notes for books, but they don't have the confidence or the motivation, or they're scared to actually sit down, plot it out, and do the actual writing, put it together, and then upload it to Amazon. And that's what you need to do. There's so many reasons to be afraid of that, but they're all silly. You're afraid the book is going to be terrible and nobody's going to read it. Doesn't matter. Everybody's first book is terrible. That's just how it is. It's like in The Matrix. Everybody falls the first time on the jump program. But you have to do it. Not going to save the world until you can jump between the two buildings. So, more specifically, what is it beyond that? Because I got a letter from someone specifically that got me thinking about this topic, who was asking, how do you weave funny things or funny jokes inside of a longer story? So it's easy to do like a silly joke book, like my Trump book, Trump's America. It was just like a series of features, little graphics and listicles and fake articles by Trump or about Trump. And you don't really need any structure for that. The only structure we gave it was categories. It was like the presidency, the environment, science, life, stuff like that. How your life is going to change if Donald Trump becomes president. It was published in 2016. And then a book like Our Dumb Century, another comedy book that I edited and co-wrote, was structured with the years of the 20th century. Front pages from The Onion from the year 1900 through the year 2000. But if you're telling a story, if you're doing a novel, you can't do it the same way. It's a totally different kind of book. You have to have a story structure, and you have to use the same type of dramatic story structure that you would use in a dramatic story. You have to have characters that people care about. You have to have an inciting incident. You have to have a journey for that character to go through. You have to have obstacles, super important. An opponent, an antagonist for your protagonist. You have to have allies for your protagonist, usually. And you have to have fits and starts. You have to have reversals. You have to have a moment, a visit with death about 3/4 of the way through the story, and then you have to have a revelation at the end. This is how 99% of how all dramatic stories are told. There are other more obscure structures, but this is the main structure that I would recommend for any beginner writing any kind of story. But then how do you make that funny? Well, first of all, you have to make sure that your character is contrasting with the environment of the story. And they're contrasting with the plot of the story. So if the plot is a character having to do something really brave, if you make a wimp your protagonist, you're going to have ironic contrast, and it's going to be funny. And if you can make your story something relatable, something inherently funny, like something having to do with sex or relationships or something we can all relate to, then put those things together and you've already got two funny filters, irony and reference, working for you, and of course character. And you're on your way. You're on your way to doing a funny movie, or a novel or a play or anything long form. But then how do you drop humor inside that story as you're going along when the characters are doing things? Well, there, you're just writing jokes. When people talk, they're going to say funny things. Now, you can help yourself along by making the characters contrast so that they're extremely different, not only in type, and by different I mean they should be opposites. You can pair somebody stuck up with somebody who has low self-esteem. You can pair a neat freak with a slob, which is what Neil Simon did for The Odd Couple. There are so many different ways to pair people. You know, really smart person, really dumb person, or really dumb person contrasted with the rest of the environment who is all smart. And you can pair people up so that it's them against the world, and they can be similar or they can be contrasting. What you don't want is in between. You don't want wishy-washy, milquetoasty, halfway. You want extremes, either very similar or exact opposites. You don't want anything in between. And then when they talk, they're going to have differing desires, the characters. They're going to have contrasting desires, and you're going to find humor in that contrast. And you're going to use the funny filters to make sure that their lines are funny. The main funny filter you're going to be using in a longer form story is character. When you have a character, and ideally for a protagonist or a major character, you want to use a character archetype. I list the 40 major archetypes of comedy in my most recent book, How to Write Funny Characters. It's on Amazon. And if you use one of those archetypes, the comedy is basically going to write itself, because these characters are archetypes because people love them and they've seen them over and over. They want to see them again, and they expect certain behavior from them. And when they get that behavior, it creates a laugh. Additional laughs come when you contrast them with other characters who are different, contrasting archetypes. So they're contrasting with each other, they're contrasting with their environment, with their plot, and all that contrast is giving you irony, it's giving you potential for humor. And then as you go along, depending on what the plot is and what people have to do with their time in your story, there are going to be relatable moments. There's going to be moments where you're going to use analogy, and moments where you're going to be able to use hyperbole, and you're going to drop all those little things in as you go. And if you've done your plotting right, with enough contrast between the lead character and the journey, and you've put in a little reference, and you've got good archetypal characters going through that story, it's going to be really easy to drop jokes in the lines. And what you don't want to do, one big don't, you don't want to write gags. That's not how comedy movies work. Comedy happens in a movie or a novel or in a longer form story when characters act in accordance with their traits and they play it straight. They are within character. They're not breaking character. And they're expecting they're acting as you would expect those character archetypes to behave. So if you're writing gags, you're lost, and nobody's going to find that funny. If it's just like random gags that don't have anything to do with the story, don't have anything to do with the characters. I hope that makes sense. That's a really brief overview of how to write a funny book. Part of writing a book nowadays is publishing the book. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes on that aspect of it. There's obviously volumes of information to be communicated about the specifics of how to do that. But if you write a book, you should publish it. Don't wait around for some agent to sell it to a publisher for them to publish it traditionally. That's foolish. Publish it yourself. Do it on Amazon. You'll make more money. And you get immediate results. So the way you do that is you lay out your book in Microsoft Word and you upload it to Amazon. Go to Amazon KDP, and if you don't have an account, log in, make an account. And the steps will be very simple. Upload your Microsoft Word document. You can make a Kindle. And if you want to make a print book, you have to do a little more work designing and laying out the pages. I use Adobe InDesign for that. There are services you can get to do that. There are services you can get to make a good cover, which is essential for a good book. And you upload your book to Amazon and you sell it. So nobody's going to buy your book. That's okay. It's your first book. And as we discussed earlier in this video, your first book probably isn't going to be that great. So it's actually not a bad thing that nobody buys it. Your friends may buy it. That's fine. but write a second book and it'll be better. And then the third book will be better still. That's really the trick. There's a myth that, especially in comedy, that you're going to be a John Kennedy tool and you're going to write the great American novel in Confederacy of Dunces, and that'll be it. You'll be declared a genius and you're done. Doesn't usually happen that way. That is an incredibly rare exception to the rule of how most comedy authors become successful. People like myself, people like Douglas Adams, people like Kurt Vonnegut, they wrote and published short stories and short novels and other genre novels for years, sometimes decades, before they really hit it big with big, popular, funny books. So be patient. It takes time to learn this craft. I hope that this extremely broad overview has been helpful. I'm working on a course on how to write a book that's going to go through all the details and all the steps to basically walk you through it. So if you take the course, you're going to have a book at the end of that course and you're going to be publishing it. If you're interested in that course, go to howtowritefunny.com and add yourself to the wait list for that course. It's on the courses page, and I will hope to see you there. If you want additional help writing comedy or coming up with jokes, coming up with ideas for books to write, go to howtowritefunny.com, where I've got a ton of free resources for you to help you write better comedy. Answering the question here, where can I find the 40 archetypes again? And thank you for the nice comment. Those are listed in my most recent book, How to Write Funny Characters. That's on Amazon. So I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the funny papers. Scott Dikkers, signing off.